camera is not on, right?
Good evening. I'm Selwyn Collins, your host of CWS Conversations with Selwyn. Thank you for joining us this evening. Those of you who are joining us for the first time, a very special thank you. Let me take a moment to introduce you to CWS. At CWS, we have conversations with people. I don't like the term interview. It seems so rigid and restricting. Conversations with people about their journeys and how are they using their gifts and talents to help others. So I am constantly looking for someone or people who are doing things extraordinarily well or doing extraordinary things. And because I believe that each of us has a story to tell, my hope during these conversations is that as an audience we are informed, we are enlightened, but more importantly the youth are encouraged to step beyond their limitations and their challenges, especially when they hear a guest not speak only of their successes, which I encourage, but speak about their challenges and how they might have overcome some of those challenges. And so what I usually do is invite the guests to imagine a young person listening to you and hearing how, not only how you've been successful, but how you dealt with challenges, and recognizing something similar, a similar challenge, and being able to overcome that. And then one day, you may not be around to see it, or you may not know of it, but just the idea that that person may one day become, or could become, the head of state of a country, become a geneticist or an oncologist, someone who stops a genocide. We don't know. And this is why it's important for us to give beyond ourselves, to give outside of ourselves. I always believe that the greatest gift, or the greatest form of giving, is to give without expectations, to give without, to give without knowing the extent of your gift, or knowing if that person will be able to give you anything in return. And when I say this, I think of great leaders who have gone before us. People like Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and Mahatma Gandhi. Folks who have, to name a few, who have not been around, lived long enough to see the extent of their struggles, to see the extent of their sacrifice. And to me, that is the greatest form of giving, the greatest mark of leadership, to do something beyond your scope, beyond yourself, for the benefit of others, without any form of expectations. Tonight, we have a guest, another gem of our soil, Dawn McDonald. I'll take a short break, and when I return, I'll introduce you to her. But I'm very excited to have this conversation tonight, because not only she's a sister from my native country, Guyana, we attended the same school, and we'll hear a little bit about that during the conversation. So bear with me. We are back. For those of you who are now joining us, I'm Selwyn Collins, your host of CWS Conversations with Selwyn. The lovely lady next to me is Dawn McDonald. Dawn, good evening.
Good evening, Selwyn.
And welcome to CWS.
Thank you. It's an absolute honor to be here.
You know, Dawn, what I like to do is to give our audience a glimpse of the guest's bio. And so I'm just going to cherry pick around and then we get started. So I hope I do it justice. Dawn considers herself a true generalist, someone who likes to do a little bit of everything. She loves mathematics, fun and games, and very little else while she was in high school. Later on in college, she discovered her love of history and literature. That's very interesting. And Then Dawn also is very passionate about sewing, about the piano. But what I wanted to talk about here is some of the, the awards that Dawn has received. In 1997, Dawn received the Top Women in Sciences Award from the National Technical Association. And the following year, she was honored at the Women of Color Technology Awards Conference as one of 50 who make a difference. In 2013, she received the Outstanding Service Award from the Plainfield Grassroots Community Development Corporation, known as PGCDC, for her work in this organization's Community SAT Prep program, which is one of our many volunteer activities. And Dawn is also a standing member of St. Mark's Episcopal Church, where she serves in several roles, including as a member of the vestry, chair of the stewardship committee, editor of the weekly newsletter, and manager of the website. St. Mark's awarded her the Harley Van Buren, am I pronouncing this right? PQ Outstanding Service Award in 2005, and the Louise F. Jackson Spirit of St. Mark's Award in 2012. Dawn, I know I didn't do this bio justice, but one of the things I like to do is to encourage the guests to reveal about themselves, so that by the end of the conversation, our audience, each of us, gets a perspective, a more three-dimensional perspective on who you are. So I don't want to rob anybody of that. And so I want to start by asking you this. Investing in our young people is investing in our collective future. That's a quote by you. Why do you believe this is so?
Investing in our young people, in whatever way that we do, is helping them to grow, to develop, and leaving our world. They are gonna, in a short space of time, they are gonna be taking our place, and just like we took the place of the generation before us. And so we're equipping them to do that very effectively. And so making an investment in our young people, that's a line I like to use. I do a lot of recommendations for people, and because of the roles that I serve. And I love to use that line in the recommendations, because I always think that giving that person a scholarship, admitting that person into your school, is an investment in that person, and it's an investment in our community when they come out of school and they're doing wonderful things. It's just an investment in our collective well-being.
Here's a quote by Vivian Green, which one of your favorite quotes. Life is about waiting for the storm. It's not about waiting for the storm to pass. It is about learning to dance in the rain. Why do you love this quote so much, and how does it resonate with you?
That quote talks about rain, first of all, which I like. I really like rain, and I've come after living here in the U.S. for over 30 years. I've come to really appreciate rain in Guyana, because rain in Guyana is warm and it's lovely. Rain here, even on a very hot day, is cold. It feels cold. So I look back now, you appreciate things after you don't have them at your disposal anymore. I look back and I really like rain in Guyana. The other thing I like about that quote is that it's all about the here and now. It's enjoying what you have right now, who you are right now. And why wait until you get this? Why wait until you do this? After school, I'm going to do that. After this, I'm going to really do that. Do it right now. What's to stop you from doing it right now? Don't wait until you get a big house before you make it beautiful. Wherever you live, make it beautiful.
I like that. The power of now. Born in Guyana to two school teachers.
Yes.
Your dad, a mathematician. Give us a glimpse into that world. First, as a 10-year-old, and then as an adolescent.
Into the world of teaching parents?
No, yes, exactly. Into that, growing up with teaching
Into the world of teaching parents. One thing that the world of teaching parents taught me is that I should not be a teacher, because they worked very, very hard. My mother taught all day at school and always had a private class at home in the afternoons. She did lessons in shorthand and typewriting. And my father, by the time I was born, I think was teaching at Queen's College, and then went on to teach teachers to teach. at the at the government training college, that later became the Cyril Potter College. So my parents were educators, you know, were all their lives, and that was had a lot of interesting side effects. First of all, every teacher who ever taught us knew our parents. Many of them were taught by our parents. And that even carried on to when I came to college in the US. I walked into a class one day and the professor said, it was an advanced French class, it was very small, only 6 students. And the professor, we were introducing ourselves, and as soon as I said my name, of course, my Guyanese accent, which can never disappear, came across, and he says, "Oh, are you from Guyana?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Wait, McDonald? Are you William McDonald's daughter?" And I'm like, "Oh no, they even know me here. They even know him here." So it turns out my father taught him at Queen's College. That was Roger Isaacs. And later on, once I was doing a math class, and my friend said, "Why are you signed up for that class? That man Crawford, he is like really tough, Take that class on a semester when he's not teaching it." I said, "Okay, I'm going to go drop this class." So I go to Professor Crawford with my drop slip. And I said, "Professor Crawford, I really can't fit this class into my schedule. I think I'd like to drop it." And he says, "Are you from Guyana? Are you related to William McDonald?" And I said, "Oh no, here he goes again." Turns out Professor Crawford had attended University of the West Indies with my father and knew him very well. Needless to say, he promptly gave me the drop slip back and said, "See you in class on Tuesday." And I had to take his class. I, of course, did very well because he knew my dad. There was no slacking off there. But with parents who are teachers, you always, in school, you always have their legacy around you. Mm-hmm. And you end up knowing a lot of people because my parents the 2 of them have taught hundreds of people. Mm-hmm. So we know, and they tended to be very close to their students. So as kids, we got to know their students and their students' families. So up to now, in fact, now my parents are 85 and their students still come over every summer. There's a group of students who comes over to visit with them every single summer.
Wow, that's amazing. Talking about legacy, you said you followed in your dad's footstep and became a mathematician. Now, how did that feel to you, as a daughter, and what do you think it meant to him? I'm sure he was happy about that. My brother and sister are also mathematically inclined and strong in mathematics. They were both engineers. I was a software engineer. My brother did civil engineering. My sister did mechanical engineering. So I think it's in our DNA. Mathematics is in our DNA. So somehow it's not easy to avoid. In my case, I really liked little more than mathematics. I loved mathematics and didn't really like many other subjects during high school. It took me a while to discover joy in subjects that were not math related. Not even the other sciences were particularly appealing to me as mathematics was. Well, talking about your parents, what is your fondest memory of them as a child?
My fondest memory of my parents, it's something that I was reminded of only last night. My parents, before we owned a car, my parents took us around on bicycle. And there were 3 of us, and there was often my cousin Carol Ann with us. And my mom rode her bike with my sister in a little carriage on the front handle, hanging off the handle. And I think I was at the back, on a carrier at the back. And then on my dad's bike, my brother rode on the bar, and Carol Ann rode on the back of that bike. And we did so many things on those 2 bicycles.
Wow.
That's really one of my favorite images to recall.
Do you recall any special words of wisdom from your parents that have shaped who you are today?
Well, the 2 that come to mind instantly, my mother always says, "Work for yourself." My mother is a woman who is way ahead of her time. She told us this from the time we were small children, that we should always aim to work for ourselves and not work for anybody else, because that way we can shape our own destiny. My father's words of wisdom that really stand out, he is very wise. Both of them are very wise, so they've said many things. But the one that stands out to me is that each generation should do better than the previous one.
I like that.
And that really was clearly demonstrated in his life, because his parents were really struggled. And then he started out his life really struggling and made tremendous strides. It doesn't matter what I do in my life, I can never rise to the heights that my father has, just because of where he started from. So he did amazing things with his life. And so it's a challenge. His challenge to us was to build upon what he did, and I think I've done some of that building. As far as the trajectory, the gap that he filled in, I don't think I can ever meet that challenge. And my challenge to my son and my nephew are that they have to do better than us.
What story, and let's start with your father 1st. What story has he always told about you?
He probably often, there are many, but the one that he talks about is me running around the house when they were taking me to the dentist. Like, for some reason, like, the dentist was the most terrifying thing of all time as a child. And once they were taking anything to do with teeth, for some reason, if they were going to take out the tooth that was like hanging out, that was a problem. I would scream the whole house down. So one day he was taking me to the dentist to get one of the little baby teeth out, probably, and I just ran circles around the house, screaming so much that the neighbors came out to find out what was going on. He likes to say that. He likes to talk that story. There are a few others that he likes to talk about, and some of them I'll stay away from, for sure.
Before I ask you to tell us what story your mom always tells, let me just make an announcement. Those of you who are tuning in from areas where your internet connection may be troublesome, maybe challenging, whether you're in Africa, the Caribbean, Guyana, wherever, we transmit in 3 frequencies. If you roll your mouse over the display or the video player and choose one that is suitable to you. There is high def, which is 480, and then there is 400, and then 360. I just want to make that point clear. So tell us about your mother. What story she always tells about you?
Oh, I've been thinking about that. What does she always tell about me? She likes to talk about, she talks a lot about the things that I did as a teenager. And I think she talks about my creative things, my sewing. And she talks a lot now about how much I work in and around the church, which is like, yeah, spoken of a lot.
Okay.
I think she's proud of that.
I have this question for you. Who would you say, apart from your parents, have had the greatest impact on you? But and they seem almost unfair, because you just mentioned how many people your parents have taught and how many of them you know and know you. So I don't know if this is much of a challenge to you to sort of pick out from the lot, but please, if you can, give it a shot.
Picking one is difficult, but if I have to pick one,
Yeah.
I could not pick one of my siblings because I couldn't leave one out. But if I have to pick one, I will pick my son. My son, Tabo. He has taught me some things that I didn't know existed. For example, and I'm sure this happens with every parent, but my child has taught me a love that I really did not know existed before I had him. And that's just tremendous for me.
Wow.
I have learned a lot from him. I've learned a lot from being his mother.
Dawn, I'm going to pretend I'm a chef for this moment and just let that simmer for a little bit, because that's powerful. That is very, very powerful. Wow. Thanks for saying that.
Thank you, Thabo.
Many years ago, I think it's 78, you migrated here to the United States, leaving some friends behind, obviously. What can you share with us about how it was for you during those times when you first got here?
Well, 1978 was a challenging year because I left home. I was actually anxious to leave home because my brother and sister had left Guyana a month before me, and they came and they went to Washington, D.C. I left and I went to a school I left to go to college, and I went to a school in North Carolina. I did not know very many people. Actually, there was one person who was in my class at Bishop's who had been in the school the year before, and she had transferred to a school a few miles away. I mean, it was in a different city. So she was the closest to anything that I had known before. I really didn't know anyone there. And it was a very small school. Many of the people there were from North Carolina, were from places pretty close by, and I was like a real anomaly to them. Actually, one night I actually did run into someone from Guyana. He saw I had a little Guyana flag in my room, and he looked in the room and said, "Oh, there's someone from Guyana there." So I didn't know him before, but I got to know him and some of his friends. And then eventually I made friends, but by the time, as soon as I got to North Carolina, I want to stay there. And I spent the whole year scheming out how I was going to move to Washington, D.C. to be with my siblings. And that happened. By the end of the school year, though, I did learn to appreciate many things about North Carolina and wish that I was living in the moment and really enjoying it, looking for things to enjoy for the 9 months that came before that.
Can you tell us what you miss most about two ages, 16 and 21?
What I miss most about 16 is all the fun we had. 16 was like fifth form, party. I mean, talk about hot needle burn thread. We had, I made a new outfit for every party, and my friends and I did the same thing. And we really had a good time. I'm surprised I did so well at my O-levels, that at least well enough to get to do A-levels, because of we had a healthy social life between, partying and the Girl Guides and all the other social stuff. But that was really a fun time for me. That was 16. And what I miss most about 21 is simple: Washington, D.C. I lived in Washington, D.C. when I was 21, and it is my favorite place to be in the whole world. It's a close rival to Georgetown.
Talking about favorite, and I'm so glad you mentioned school. You attended, and just for those who were not familiar, non-Guyanese in our audience, you attended Bishop's High School in Guyana.
Yes.
I bring this up not only because we both did, and that's where I met you for the first time, but because of the recent flurry of conversations in this Bishop's group on Facebook, the escalation in tenor and tone of the friendly competition among the various houses and in defense of their colors remind me each day, right, what our alma mater stands for and how fortunate we were. It was there I met some of the most brilliant and wonderful people I've ever met in my life. And they taught us well in every aspect of life. What I want to ask you, are there any principles you learned as a student there that still resonate with you?
Well, Of course, whatever thy hand findeth to do, do it with all thy might.
Oh God.
That is our motto, and that I learned from bishops, and that is what I live by. I really have little tolerance for not doing that. And like you, bishops is where I met many wonderful, and I still have most of my best friends are from bishops. It was a great place.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
And blue rocks. Go Victoria Jor.
I wish I could speak of yellow. But what I will say is that here tonight, two colors have come together in the spirit of camaraderie to have a wonderful conversation. Two colors that in the palette creates green, which is the main color of our school. That's blue and yellow. That's all I'm going to say. I have to maintain integrity of my show. I cannot be biased, even though I love yellow and I'm loyal to yellow. But anyway, I understand, talking about love, you love playing the piano. And which you had stopped playing, right?
Yeah. You know what? I loved playing the piano in that piano class that I took at Howard University. I don't play the piano anymore. Actually, I went over to my neighbor's house the other day, and she has this huge house, and you can actually close the door of the room with the piano. So I said, okay, you go in another part of the room. Let me close the door so I can play. I don't play for people because I am sorely out of practice. I did piano lessons like many kids in Guyana did, and I begged my mother to let me stop playing piano after I finished, I think, the fourth grade exam. And she did. I don't remember what the bargaining chip was. She always has a bargaining chip. If you stop that, you have to start doing that. I don't remember what it was. But I stopped playing the piano at that point. And then at Howard University, when I was just I had done all my required subjects early. So I was exploring and having fun. And one day I said, oh, here's a piano class. And I walk in, and it's quite an advanced class. And the woman is like a composer, and and she gives us these pieces to play, and then she writes words to them. And I'm like, oh, do I have to do that kind of stuff? But I really enjoyed it. I put in the practice. I really enjoyed the class. But I haven't played much since then.
You know what comes to mind as you say this, right? Especially being at Howard and challenging yourself in an advanced course is your capacity for challenge. Why do you challenge yourself so much? What is it about challenge that appeals to you?
I don't know that I do, actually. I always think I can challenge myself more. So I really do think that, am I on easy street here? I'm always asking myself, can I do a little bit more?
Right.
But
you do though. You do challenge yourself to do things.
I guess I do. Yeah. I think I'm well aware that we only use a very small percentage of our brains.
Yes.
And I don't even know if I use that much. I think 10% is what they say, or something like that. I may be on the low end of that. I might be like 8 or 7. But I always think that there's more. There's always more to do. There's always more to be done. And I always think that there is more that I can do, to make somebody's life better, to make my own life better, to make this world a little better.
On this show, I love to follow the flow. And as a result of that, I am not tethered to any chronology of questions, because I just love the fluidity of how a conversation goes. And you mentioned community and giving. Why do you give back to your community so much?
I hope that the giving that I do is not like considered like a so much level, because I'm sure there are people who do a lot more than me.
Right.
But I enjoy, first of all, working with young people. There is something that is super energetic about young people, and being in their company just brings me alive. And I do some very specific things with young people, like teaching an SAT prep program, and with high school students. We even have some middle school students in our program. And I do that. One, I teach mathematics, and I love mathematics, and I love people learning mathematics. I want everybody to love it like me. So that's one. The other thing, I just think that with a little bit of guidance, like I got from my teachers and many other people who have touched my life, with a little bit of guidance, you can make a tremendous impact on somebody's life. And I have seen that play out over and over in our class, in the class that I teach.
Before I just want to I want to touch this, and then we're gonna move away from the high school years and so on. What is your favorite memory from high school?
I don't know that there is one single
Or give
thing.
me one of them.
I'll give you one of them.
One that is not blue.
Yeah. One is actually a story I told on Facebook about when I was not made a prefect by Mrs. Jarvis. You know, prefects, for those who are not familiar with our school system, the older students, the upperclassmen, have an opportunity to help to maintain order in the school. And so they're made prefects, and they sometimes fill in for teachers. They can give detentions, and etc. So in our school, everybody who was in the school, there were some people who came into the school just for the sixth form. That's just for the last 2 years of school. They came from other schools. But most of the people who got to the sixth form came through, did 5 years before and then went to the sixth form. And almost all of us who got into the sixth form, all of the kids who got into sixth form were usually made prefects. Well, the day when the prefect appointments were being announced, every single person who was kind of eligible to be a prefect because they were there before was called except me. And I was not called because I had refused to wear the hat, and Mrs. Jarvis decided she was going to teach me a lesson on that day. And she was going to not make me a prefect. So I ended up sitting on the floor with all the new girls who weren't eligible to be prefects and just extremely angry and at not being made a prefect. And then a couple of weeks later, she called me up and she made me a prefect. But she wanted to make sure that I learned that lesson, that when you disobey the rules, there are consequences to be paid.
Is this a confession? Can we take from this that you were rebellious or a rebel?
When I was in school, I never thought of myself as being rebellious.
Mm-hmm.
But now looking back, I think I was a quiet rebel.
A quiet
because
rebel.
I never made a big fuss over it, or
Right.
I never encouraged people to do it along with me. I was fine doing it by myself. I hated the hat, and I always wanted to get rid of the hat, and my campaign was led by me not wearing it, regardless of how many times I was told I had to wear it.
Let me just slip into the chat room. Mignon had said, Dawn is breaking up. Maybe it's my computer. Andrea said, doing great, Dawn. Caroline said, great job, Dawn. Can't wait to hear more. Love you. And then Andrea said, I can hardly hear the interviewer's questions. You need to speak up. Andrea, I hope I am sounding much louder than before. Just drop a note and let me know. Dawn, back to you before we take, I want to ask this question before we take a break. When you became homesick and left Guy Mine, I read, and Linden to return to Georgetown, and then you worked for the Computer Systems Department, Banks, DIH, was it because of family, friends, and various flavors of Georgetown, or a combination?
It was just home. I just wanted to be home with my family.
Home. Okay. As promised, let's take a break. We are back with the lovely Dawn McDonald. Dawn, I have a question in two parts. One, what is the best advice anyone has ever given you? And then, what is the least good advice one has given you?
The best.
Or sorry.
Uh-huh.
Let me change
Okay.
the second one. It's a little confusing. What is the least helpful advice? That's the last part. The first part is what is the best advice one has given you, if there's such a thing, and the second part is what is the least helpful advice one has given you.
The best advice I've ever gotten. I don't know if it's this is the ultimate best, but it's pretty good. Um, is in raising my child, my priest said to me one day, he was having some challenges, and my priest said to me, Don, whatever he does, praise it. Whatever good he does, it doesn't matter how small it is, praise it. And that was that little bit of advice made a huge difference for me. So that was a big one. It sounds very simple, but it really was big.
And the least one?
I that's difficult, because to me, if somebody gives me advice that is not like relevant for me, I kind of okay, kind of goes in one ear and out the other. I can't think of anything that as being least helpful.
Can you tell us what challenge you overcame that you're most proud of?
One challenge is I was laid off once. I was laid off twice, actually, and one of those times it was in a big economic downturn in the U.S. And I kind of enjoyed goofing off for a few weeks, a few months probably, and then I said, okay, well, I need to do something with my life, and I started an interior design business.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of by accident. A friend came over once and asked me who had made my curtains, and I said I did, and she said, oh, really? We just have this new house and it doesn't have any curtains. Could you do curtains for us? And I was like, okay. So I did curtains for them, and they had a beautiful home, and the curtains really played well in their home, and it just led from one thing to the next. And for the next 2 years, that was my livelihood. That was my job. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I call it my mid-career break.
I'm curious because, I'm a creative as well. But doing that and making an earning a living out of it, or an income, how did that, what was that like for you? How did that make you feel?
Very much empowered.
Empowered.
Yes.
Did it remind you of what your mom said?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And let me tell you, my mother was my greatest cheerleader.
Wow.
She would stay up. I worked odd hours. I like staying up late getting stuff done. I love getting stuff done in general. Mm-hmm. And I would often work into the early hours of the morning, and my mother would always be sitting there with me. She was always, she would not go to bed until I was done. And she did that for most of those 2 years. She stayed up with me, whatever she could help me with. She was so thrilled that I was working for myself. And that, her forever chant to us, work for yourself, was actually, coming true. That she did whatever I needed. She was there for me.
I'm just going to go into the chat room for a second. Tabo said, I'm loving the interview, Mom.
Thanks for listening, Tabo.
Moy said, hi, Selwyn and Dawn, enjoying the show. Everything sounds good to me. And Joy and Uncle Oscar said, hearing you loud and clear up here in frigid Ottawa in Canada, enjoying the show.
Oh, thank you.
You speak so well about Mom, and I like that because I'm very close to my mom. Who are some women some other women who have inspired you.
Um, my aunt, whom we lost a few months ago, my mom's sister, she was a great inspiration to me. She's just one of those, she is the consummate aunt, the person who is always there for you. Dr. Phil
Yes.
talks about that soft place to fall.
Yes.
That's what my auntie was. So my aunt Enid is one. And I of people that I don't know, there are people that you don't know. I really don't like saying, hey Oprah, da, 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 da. I don't know those people. But there's one person that I don't know who I find very inspiring. The beautiful Miriam Makeba. I love
Oh,
that
gosh,
woman.
my favorite.
She's so. I remember seeing her. We had an LP. I don't know if it was her first or what, but I looked at her and I said, "Oh, to me, she was the most beautiful woman in the world." And she was such. She is really an inspiration to me.
Miriam.
And then my sister. My sister is younger than me, and she is wise beyond her years. She has always been wise beyond her years. And she has managed to inspire me although she comes behind me in tremendous ways, always.
Um,
And I forgot to say my two grandmothers as well.
any of them still alive?
No, neither.
Oh, okay. The 1997, you received the Top Women in Sciences award, and then you received the 50 Who Make a Difference. I think that's the following year. What advice do you have for young people who want to pursue a career in mathematics or technology?
Go for it. There is lots of space for you. It is really a field that we don't have enough people with the skills.
Yeah.
And I am constantly just trying to find people to get them to love mathematics. I having done the SAT prep class after doing it for about 6 years or so, I said that there were too many people coming to that class who just didn't like math for no good reason. I'd ask them why, and they really didn't have a good reason. They didn't do well at it, and they didn't like it. So the board of this organization that runs the class decided to to start a program for younger kids called the Out of the Box Club. That is a math and science club where children come and learn like an experiential way. They learn by doing and by playing, and they do fantastic math and science projects. So I'm hoping to just instill a love of math and science in these young kids so that by the time they get to teenage years and they come to my SAT class, they will like it.
Talking about that, math sometimes seems so dreadful and instills so much fear in a lot of people, especially young people. How do you get students to look at math differently, and well, with the intent to conquering it? How do you do that?
Sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't. There are times when I don't get them to. My father was a mathematics teacher, and that's one of the skills that I did. One of the things that I did not pick up from him is how to get everybody. To me, everybody he taught seemed to like math.
Uh-huh.
Everybody I teach doesn't always end up liking it, but they like it a lot more because I try to make it fun. I try to make my class interesting. I try to put as much fun in as I can. Try to joke around with them. I find something that works with young people. Put a $sign in the math problems. When they come to look at math problems with $signs in it, so all of a sudden it comes a little easier. The right answer comes a little faster. So do that, or also I rewrite a lot of my questions with their names in it, especially those who have more unusual names. So, if you have a really particularly unusual name and all of a sudden you're in class and you hear the math problem being read and your name is in it, believe me, you pay a lot more attention.
and you want to get that question right. So there are lots of little tricks that I try, and sometimes, a lot of times, it works.
I want to ask you, what does it mean to be creative as a mathematician? But I also want to ask you, if there's a creative side to mathematics.
Yes. And that's probably a short answer because I really don't know what. There's, of course, no, of course not. There is so much that has been created by mathematics, right? Okay. I'm not that level of mathematician, no. I have not. I have not come up with many, innovative, creative things based on my mathematics.
Have any of your students developed such a passion for mathematics and have gone on to become mathematicians themselves?
I probably haven't been doing this long, teaching in the SAT prep long enough for me to see them become mathematicians. But I do have a young friend who is a mathematician in that he finished his undergraduate degree in mathematics and he just finished his master's in statistics. So I don't think he did that because of me, but I'm very proud that he did that. He did not attend my class. He lives in Atlanta. But I'm very proud that he did that. But I have seen, though, many kids do very well in math, and a few of them want to study math. It's not a popular major. Even when I was in school a few decades ago, even when I was in college, the math majors were very few. We were very few.
Talking about math and sciences and technology, and I want to go back to one of these awards that you received, especially the Top Women in Sciences Award. I think it would be almost unfair to our audience and to history if I don't ask you to give us a glimpse of what it was like being there, being selected. How did you feel?
That's an interesting. That was a whole interesting experience. It was awesome being there. I was just out of the blue. Someone wrote to me, I think, and said that you'd been selected to receive women in sciences, right? I think it's Top Women in Sciences Award, and then they sent the list of people who had gotten it the year before. This was the second year the award was given. The list of people included like Mae Jemison, who was an astronaut, and the year I got it, they also had another astronaut in there. So I'm looking at these people, and okay, what do I have in common with them? These are some pretty awesome women, scientists at the NIH and all sorts of stuff. So it turns out that a professor of mine in graduate school, this was about 13 years after I left graduate school, and he had nominated me for this award. So my office was very excited, probably more excited than I was at the time, and the admin in our department got a limousine to take me and my family down to Philadelphia for the grand event, and we got there. It was very nice. I felt very honored. In fact, at the end of when my plaque came, it was a beautiful glass statue. It said Dr. Dawn Burnett, which was my last name at the time. And I said, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a PhD. Then I looked. I was probably one of the very few people without PhDs on the list. So I really don't know quite how I fit in there. But I called them and I said, I'm sorry, but you have my name wrong. And they sent me another one without the doctor on it. So temporarily, I still have the one that says Dr. McDonald sitting in the closet, Dr. Burnett sitting in the closet.
If you have a particular approach to solving complex mathematical problems, what would it be?
It would be understand what is being asked and be creative.
Be creative.
Yeah.
Has a problem ever daunted you?
Yes. Oh, yes. I remember in graduate school, I was doing as an elective in my computer. I did computer science in my grad program, and I took some mathematics classes as electives. And this one, I mean, I know I wrote the program right. It was perfect. It was perfect, but the answer was wrong. You know, and I'm like, what's wrong with this thing? And I could not figure it out. I never figured it out. And that really, really bugged me. After a while, I eased up on the concern over the problem, and I was concerned that I was not going to get an A in the class. And I went to the guy and said, "Sir, Professor, is there any way I could get this wrong and still get an A in your class?" I did end up getting an A in the class, but
Congratulations.
but yeah, no, there are problems that stump me.
Another mathematic question, because I just like people who love mathematics. If you had the time, resources, and will, is there a theory you would invest your energy in?
If I had the time, resources, and will, is there a mathematical theory?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
You don't know. Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
If I had, there are many science projects I would invest in. I would certainly have everybody get their energy from the sun and the wind. I mean, if I could if I could just wave a wand and have something happen, hey, that'd be great. I'd have the whole world working on that problem.
I like that. You grew to love history and literature,
Mm-hmm.
and I found that fascinating. What is one of your favorite periods in history, and why?
One of my favorite periods in history is a very contemporary time.
Mm-hmm.
It's around the early 70s. It's a time when Guyana had just been independent for a few years, and the whole idea of national pride was taking root. I remember it being more or less a campaign. The things like the buy local campaign, where the government tried to get us interested in beautiful things that grew right here, as opposed to imported things, whether it was food or other stuff. But it was an exciting time. Even living at that time, I found it an exciting time. Guyana was going through its changes, and lots of other countries were, at that time getting independence and kind of, starting to walk kind of on their own. So that was a historical time that kind of resonates with me. It's just, as I said, very contemporary. And the history that I learned to love in college was also fairly contemporary and around that time. And it was a lot of history of like Latin America and South America and that type of thing.
If you were to encourage young people to study literature,
Mm-hmm.
what would you tell them about literature that appeals to you?
You get to roam the world. Your imagination gets to go all over the world when you read books. When you read about what other people's lives were like and what experiences they have had and what, how they grew up and what are the things that they do. I love to read books from all over the world.
You mentioned books, and when we were growing up, we didn't have television, so we read a lot. Most of our friends read a lot. We went to school with people who read a lot, and most of our conversations was about discussing the books we read and so on. Do you think, I don't know if it's a fair question, because, things must change with time as society changes, but do you think we were fortunate? You think we were fortunate because of fate that we didn't have television and that allowed us to explore and to read a lot? Do you think so?
I think we were fortunate to not have television. I really do. I think that television fills in that picture for you,
Mm-hmm.
whereas when you're reading, it's not that. But I won't put myself in the category of people who read a lot. I did not read a lot growing up.
Right.
I did not really like reading a lot. I didn't discover a love for reading until I got to college. I was a late bloomer in that area.
Really don't?
Yeah, I was. And but I would say we knew a lot.
Mm-hmm.
because although I didn't really personally read a lot, just like listening to the news that we listened to, it was so educational, and so educational about things that were not right there in front of us, about things that were far away. So we learned a lot. And I probably learned a lot by talking to my friends who read a lot of books. It was a struggle for me to get through the assigned reading in each class.
Let me just go to the chat room and then we'll take a quick break. Melissa Stewart said, excellent interview. Thanks for the invite, Selwyn. You're welcome, Melissa. Brenda from Ottawa said, enjoying the show. And Gail said, beauty and humility combined. Enjoying the discussion. So,
thank you, everybody.
let me take a quick break. We have so much to talk about.
Said, suffer the little children to come unto me. Every day more than 30,000 children around the world die of preventable diseases. More than 300,000 children are being used in war as child soldiers. Lord have mercy. A child should be loved. A child should be held. A child should be clean. A child shouldn't smell. A child shouldn't go to bed.
We're back with the lovely Dawn. Dawn, what is one thing about you that most people do not know that might surprise them? Sorry.
Most people outside of my family don't know that I'm a crier.
A crier.
Yes. My cousin was describing herself the other day, and she said that, you know, she thought that she and I tied for the second most crying people in the family. But so she said that if there were careers as criers in these days, that would be our career. I do cry a lot. I actually find crying very cleansing. So
Oh, that's fun. Oh gosh. What would you say was the most challenging or painful decision you've ever had to make?
oh gosh. Well, it was so painful I will not say that one.
Okay.
Oh, there were some difficult personal decisions that I made. But I don't know. Let me get off of that.
That's fine. That's fine. As a coordinator for a SAT prep program, can you share with us any defining or memorable moments during one of those classes, or just doing?
Yeah, we our program, we keep it at our church, and we are limited by space, so we always have many more people wanting to come than can come. And I find it very difficult telling some people no, especially kids. When kids call to advocate for themselves, it's really hard to tell them no. So one I think it was about a year, maybe a year and a half ago, the class was full and over full, and I was kind of still letting people in, and then one day I said, I don't care who else calls, I am not. The answer is no. And I'm telling myself, I'm going to say no. So this boy calls one day after school, and he says, he heard about this program and he'd like to come. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but, we really can't take anybody else. And then I said, well, what grade are you in? And he said he's in 11th grade. I said, well, this is the time you should be doing it. And And I chatted with him a little bit more, and he was so nice. He was so polite, so mannerly, that I said, eventually, I said, you know what? I'm going to take you in the class. And he said, oh, thank you. So what about my brother? I was like, brother? How old is he? I'm thinking, if he's younger, he can come next time. He said, oh, we're the same age. So they were twins. So they came to the class, of course. Both of them came to the class. And these guys did so well that one is at Harvard now and the other is at Columbia. They absolutely excelled. They loved the class. They excelled. They said that they did much better than they thought they could have done. And to me, they were brilliant. But they thought that the class really helped them. We even invited them back as volunteer tutors in their last semester in high school. The two wonderful, absolutely wonderful boys. So that was one story. The other story is in the current class, someone called me from the prosecutor's office one day and said she'd heard about the class, and she has a child who lives in a group home who she is the legal guardian for, and she would like to send the child to the class. So I said, sure. She said, the child doesn't have any money. I said, oh, we'll waive the fee. Don't worry about that. So we enrolled her in the class. This child had been in foster care since she was 9. And I just could not imagine it. I looked around for all the 9-year-olds around me and said, I can't imagine that. But she's very smart, and she's very, she's doing all AP classes, and she's doing very, very well, and she works, and it's a very exciting story. So the girl came to the class, and then like a week before the class started, the legal guardian calls back and says, do you have any more space? And I'm like, no, we sold out of space a long time ago. He said, well, she has a sister, and then who would like to come to the class. The sister lives very far away, about an hour away. She with a foster family, and of course I had to say yes. So the sister, when the registration form came, their names were alike, and they're the same age, and they're the same grade. They're twins.
Wow.
And they live about an hour away from each other, and our class is where they'll get to see each other. So that just totally told me that I should never stop doing this. It was just such a beautiful thing, and we are looking forward to working with both of them.
You mentioned inviting the twin boys, to come back and volunteer. What are some main qualities you look for in volunteers?
Commitment, and then knowledge. I think it's a big sacrifice teaching in our program, because we offer 10-week sessions and two sessions a year. So we ask our teachers to give up their Saturday mornings for 20 out of the 52 weeks of the year for just because they want to help. And everybody volunteers in the program. So you have to have that commitment to work in this program. And then you have to, of course, know the subject matter. But, you could learn that. You can't learn the commitment part.
When you hear the word happiness, what comes to mind first?
Tabo, do I have to say your name again?
Say it.
Tabo. He really makes me happy. The other thing that makes me happy is rain.
Rain. Wow.
Although, I'm a sunny side of the street person.
And you're talking about commitment, and you give, you're giving, and just now you said you hope that so much is not a barometer or one of the notches on the scale that would describe you giving back. I understand that, but what is it about giving back that appeals to you so much now?
I've been blessed.
Mm-hmm.
I have been blessed in my life. I have lived a charmed life. I have never been hungry one day. I have, on the other hand, just one generation before me, my father has experienced extreme hunger and homelessness and all that. And I've had it easy, and I want to see everybody. I want to see other people, be able to live like that. And how you live like that is by investing in yourself. And if I can help anybody to, get ahead in any way, I'm happy to do that. It brings me joy.
Thank you for saying that. Do you have a favorite hobby, and if so, what is it?
I love playing Scrabble.
Scrabble.
Yes. And Words with Friends, guys, is not Scrabble. Words with Friends allows those weird words like QI in there. That is not a Scrabble word according to the official Scrabble dictionary. But I like playing Scrabble a lot, and I love to sew, and I love my church.
If you were given a second chance to choose a career, what would it be?
Maybe interior design. I enjoyed it, and I think that's my retirement job.
Black leaders, right? Who are some you've admired over the years?
Well, of course, Nelson Mandela.
Nelson, of course.
Of course, and Martin Luther King.
Yes.
I have also admired Al Sharpton.
Al.
And I tell you why, and probably especially in the years when Al Sharpton was not always, a lot of time he was criticized for many things,
Right.
and probably, but even at that time, I remember I used to say the struggle has to be fought on all levels, and it includes all types, right? You have to have the quiet intellectuals, and you have to have the people rattling the cages out there, because until the noise is made, until people hear the noise and they settle down and listen, the intellectuals won't be listened to. So I look at the struggle, the early AIDS activists, right? ACT UP. I always remember ACT UP. ACT UP was a group that they wanted people to listen to the problems of AIDS. They wanted to raise that awareness, and they would be riotous. They'd go to city council meetings, and they were really acting up. They would really act up. But you know what? ACT UP shook the cages, and in shaking the cages, then people paid attention, and then people can come in then and say, okay, and the intellectuals would get listened to at that point. So the struggle is on all levels.
I
admire Al Sharpton for what he did.
For what he did.
Yes.
I think that phrase should be bottled and sold, or packaged and sold, about the struggle. I have a friend, and she might get me for mentioning her name here tonight because she's very humble, Karen Abrams. And Karen reminds me of a gather of new women, new blood, that are fighting the fight.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it's on Facebook writing, whether they're down in Guyana like Melissa Eiffel, these women are out there in the trenches. I think of what's her name, Roxanne Myers. All these women, and their fight touches me deeply, because I'm one of those guys who believe that our Caribbean region needs to one day have women heads of state dominating the political theater. I really do believe so. Or dominating the political theater as head of state. And she once, I saw a comment on Facebook once, this is why I remember that, where she wrote something and one of the guys, came at her about what she wrote, and then she responded, and I never forgot that. She says, well, we cannot all fight the same fight in the struggle. And I love that because it is true. We all have different gifts and different talents, and I like the way you put it over. I really love it. Saying that, this might be an unfair question, but I'm going to ask you, Don, because I just love to have you in that spot there. If you were sworn in as the head of state of a country, right? Let's take Guyana. It doesn't matter, any country. What would be the first 3 things you would do?
Yeah, I cannot. That's one of the scenarios I cannot ever imagine happening. But one of the things I would do is work on education, right? Guyana had an outstanding, just basic education in Guyana was outstanding. You left primary school, you were edumacated,
Yes.
right, after leaving primary school. Our basic education was very sound. And I think a society that does not have, well-educated people is one that will struggle. And I really, really appreciated the primary and secondary education that I got in Guyana and that was available to many, many people. Even if not through high school, just the elementary education was so sound. So I think that is something that's really, really important to work on. The other is healthy living. A lot can be achieved by each individual person, living healthy, eating healthy, fresh, healthy food, and exercising, which I don't do. But
It's hard to tell.
A lot can be gained by that. And what else? Then of course there are like real things like the country generating money, right? So I don't have any expertise in that area, but I'd probably hire experts to really come and make sure that our resources were being used properly and for the betterment of the people of the country and all that good stuff. But I'm not worried about that answer because I know it's never going to happen.
That's fine. That is fine. The important thing is that you made that step and you answered. True bishops grow. What traditions did you grow up with that that may have contributed to you being so driven?
Well, having driven parents helps. I mean, that is not
Okay.
not necessarily a tradition, but yeah. We weren't told that we had to do well. It was just expected. It was just expected that we did well, and we didn't always do well. I mean, there were times when I did very poorly, and I'm sure I can say the same for my brother. My sister, on the other hand, she was Miss Brilliant, and she always did well. But no, it was just an expectation that was set that. Yes, I don't know that it was necessarily a tradition, and yeah.
Was humility, and I'm sitting here across from you. I'm curious because this is just this is you naturally, very humble, very kind and gracious. Is humility something that your parents sort of pushed in the home?
Yes,
Okay.
I mean my parents are very humble. My parents are both. I call them. I think of them as very ordinary people who I think both individually and collectively have lived extraordinary lives.
What do you enjoy most about your job?
My current job is a nice combination of a little bit of mathematical skill and some software engineering. I do analytics, business analytics now, I get to talk to people on the business side, so I'm not only doing software engineering. I get to address real business questions that they have, and I get to think analytically. I enjoy most the analytical thinking part of it. And not all my jobs have been, analytical, so that's what I'm enjoying about this one.
Looking back at your education and or your approach to life, if you could change anything, what would you change?
I don't think I'd change anything.
Mm-hmm.
I think at different points in my life, there are things that I maybe could have done better or could have done differently, but I think they've all added up to making me who I am, and I am quite content with who I am.
Talking about contentment, when are you most happy?
I am most happy. I'm not gonna say when I'm in Tableau's company again, although that has in recent years has brought me lots of joy. I am most happy when I am at home
Mm-hmm.
with my family and my extended family. I have a large extended family, so any portion of them being around me is always a joy. And just kicking back, that's really happiness for me.
Here's where I'm going to get into trouble tonight, because I know you don't like talking about yourself. What is most gratifying about being Don McDonald? Sorry.
What is most gratifying about being me? I don't even know how to approach that question. What is most gratifying about being me? I have wonderful friends
Mm-hmm.
and a wonderful family. I keep telling my dad is actually quite ill now, and I wrote to my family and said, I have the best family in the world. The love and support that we have been feeling has just been tremendous, and I so appreciate them for that. And by now there are lots of my close friends who have been pulled into the family, so I include them in that as well.
Lakeisha in the chat room said, you were unsure about what you would say for 90 minutes, and you did an amazing interview. Always great listening to your wise words. Makes me want to change the world. Ha ha.
That's one of my young people. Go girl, you go get them. Go change the world.
What are you most proud of?
About me?
Yes, you.
I am most proud of. I am proud that proud is the thing. What am I most proud of? I'm proud that I'm proud of where I am. That I am. I'm happy. I'm proud of some of the things that I've done. I'm proud of some of the work that I've done around my church, and I'm proud of my class. I'm really proud of my SAT prep class. I love it, and of course I'm proud of my son.
Yes. I see how you lit up when you mentioned the prep class and your son. Is there anything you would rather forget?
I would rather forget.
Yes.
Yeah, there have been some painful moments in my life that that I don't even know if I'd rather forget them,
Okay.
because even after a while, after you've gone through them, you tend to see why you went through them, and you tend to see the value in what you went through. So I don't even know if I'd rather forget those.
Finish this sentence. I look forward to Sunday evenings too.
I look forward to Sunday evenings to see all the food that I've cooked for the week that's already been cooked. And I don't have to cook anymore.
Between cooking and sewing, which would you rather do?
Oh, so any day. I've learned to like cooking recently. I've actually enjoyed it, and my husband says, "Oh, it's taken all these years to discover I'm married to a gourmet cook," because I try all sorts of stuff. But still, I do enjoy sewing.
Wow.
A lot.
What is next for Dawn?
What is next for Dawn? I guess retirement is my next big step. Retirement from technology, maybe, is my next big step. I hope at some point, maybe not too soon, but grandparenthood would be lovely.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Chat room, Martin said, great interview. Dawn is doing her part to change the world. It's inspiring.
Thank you,
Andrea
Martin.
CCB said, hello, Dawn. Your passion for life is mathematically clear and inspiring. Thanks for sharing.
Oh, thank you.
Dawn, if you could go back in time, what would you tell that 15-year-old girl?
I would probably tell her to study a little harder. Because at 15, I really wasn't studying very hard. And I would also say, just love what you're doing all the time. At any point, just do stuff that you love doing, and at any point in your life. But the one advice I would give would be to study a little harder.
You work with young people all the time, or most of the time, a lot, right? Is there a motivational speech that you give them at the beginning of the class, at the end of the class, anytime?
I try to. Yeah, actually, this class, which just started last Saturday, I showed them a video of a young man called Richie, named Richie, who is a mechanical engineer who was born without arms. And he does everything for himself. He's totally independent. He has invented equipment to help him to do every single thing, from riding a bike to opening the fridge when he was a little boy, to having his spoon on something that rotates so that he fills it and then spins it around and puts the food in his mouth. And he designs cars. He works on cars all the time. I see him there with his little welding equipment. He is an absolutely. So at the end of showing that video, I asked my students to raise their hands in the air. I wanted to say and wave them like you just don't care, because this is the last week you're going to not care. But I asked them to wave their hands in the air, and I said, okay, everybody has two arms, right? So no excuses. No excuses. If he can do what he did without arms, you guys don't have a single excuse in the world.
Before I ask you the last question, which I ask all my guests, I want to give you an opportunity, because I love and respect you so much, Dawn. You are from Juror House, the Blue House, which you expounded at the beginning of this show. We are having a reunion this year.
Mm-hmm.
For those who are listening, who are from Bishops, and is there anything you would like to say about our reunion?
Come to the reunion. It's going to be fabulous. And if you're not on the Bishop's Facebook page, where all those great stories are being shared, get on there. Maybe Selwyn can tell you how to get on. I'm not that Facebook literate, but I'm fairly novice when it comes to Facebook. But get on that site, and you gotta come. Participate. You guys have to come.
Become part of the fun.
Yes, enjoy it. Enjoy it.
I never knew that we could have such friendly competition and so much fun.
Yes.
In the spirit of respect and love. There is something amazing that is being incubated here. I don't know what this is going to evolve into, but I'm optimistic, and I am confident that it's going to be something magnificent.
I couldn't agree more.
come to the reunion. You have to. You must. This group is teaching us the amazing group of people that bishops. I like to say, what is that hall? Oswald Parry.
Oswald Parry Hall.
The
Yeah.
Oswald Parry Hall. I think Oswald Parry, the spirit of Oswald Parry Hall is in all of us, in each of us. Come and be among friends.
Yeah. You know, I just tell you quickly, my favorite moment of the Jamaica reunion was off the charts. It was really fabulous.
Please don't talk about the Jamaica reunion. I did not
You're right,
make it.
you
Please
did not
don't.
make it, right?
Right.
Well, I'll tell you anyway. One night, my friend Marva Hendy and I stayed up until 4 a.m. talking. We were the only people sitting out by the pool. Everybody had long gone to bed, and the two of us we talked from one thing to the next, and it was just beautiful. Marva, if you're there, I know we always talk about it, but I'm looking forward to doing that again at the reunion in New York.
Can we Pope?
Sure. We'll open it up.
Oh gosh. Melissa Stewart said the legacy lives on, and Sean P said, "Great show. Continue to inspire." Thank you, Sean. Don, thank you.
Thank you, Selwyn. Thanks for
Finally.
having me.
You're welcome. Finally, and how should I say this with grace? Yellow is a beautiful color. Alan is a very warm and gracious house, and we are all welcoming. What do you have to say about Jor?
Well, you know, in my day it was called Victoria, right? So now it's called Jor, and actually Miss Jor was the headmistress when I was in first form, and then she retired. But Jor, you know, I don't remember really, honestly, Jor being that outstanding in lots of things. But you know, we were never the house that had the most order marks. We were never the house that won any sports either. And we were always a sports where, you know, the house where it was difficult to find blue flowers for the desk on the stage.
Mm-hmm.
When it's your house, you used to, at least in our day, we put flowers in the color of the house on the desk on the stage. We could never find navy blue flowers. So that was a challenge for Jor. But I don't know, we were great, man. Blue rocks.
If you insist, of course. I rather have yellow rocks any day. That's gold. Well, Don Lowe, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank
It has been
you.
fun.
This was a lot of fun. I thank you. I appreciate you inviting me. And good night,
Good
everybody.
night. Karen G said, Don, you're always a darling. So good night, Don. Good night, everybody. See you guys next week, Tuesday.
Arrowhead, I love my golden arrowhead. I don't think you heard me. I said arrowhead, I love my golden arrowhead. My, all GT